Meantime, our next guest will be one of the Congress members questioning Attorney General Merrick Garland later today. Joining us with a preview of what we can expect is Republican Congressman from Florida, member of the House Judiciary Committee, Greg Steube. Congressman, there are a lot of contentious issues expected to come up today, especially the FBI probe to investigate school board threats. What are you hoping to get some answers from the AG about?
Well, we're going to bring to light the politicization that we've seen out of the Department of Justice, and we're going to be very strong in our questions to the Attorney General about that. And to your point, that first issue is going to be, why are you terming parents basically domestic terrorists and ordering the FBI to go in and start investigating parents who are upset that their children are being taught critical race theory, their children are being forced to wear masks despite the fact that the science doesn't support that. So I think a lot of the questioning that you're going to see in the beginning from Republicans is going to focus primarily on that, because that's been so recent. And it's so atrocious that we're going to have the Attorney General of the United States order the FBI through a memo and demand investigations on parents of all people who care about their children and what they're being taught in schools. That's if there's a behavior that is rising to the level of criminal behavior in these different school board meetings, that's something that local law enforcement is tasked with and responsible in dealing with. And a lot of these situations don't rise to even that level. So why the federal government would get involved in ordering the FBI to investigate these individuals who just care about their children and what their children are being taught?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of parents who have become frustrated with what they're seeing in the curriculum for their students. They're speaking out, they're letting their voices be heard. I want to show you, though, some excerpts from the AG's letter that sort of sparked this investigation. It says in part, quote, "The department takes these incidents seriously and is committed to using its authority and resources to discourage these threats, identify them when they occur, and prosecute them when appropriate. The department is steadfast in its commitment to protect all people in the United States from violence, threats of violence, and other forms of intimidation and harassment." Congressman, what do you think this says about the Biden administration's priorities?
Well, I think it's funny that he himself is using intimidation and threats to the American parents all across our country who care about their children. So he's using intimidation and threats, the threats of the FBI and investigations, and people are going to raid your houses and we're going to come after you if you don't get in line with critical race theory and the other things that they want, the Biden administration wants our children taught. It's a sad day in America where you have the federal government coming down with such authority, whether it be mask mandates, vaccine mandates, what our children should be taught in schools. Those decisions should be left up to primarily parents at first, and after that, local school boards should be making those decisions. And there should be robust debate if those school boards are having discussions about critical race theory and other things that are not based on fact and not based on history.
Yeah. And again, this will go back and forth between a bipartisan committee here. So we're going to hear from Republicans and Democrats today. Perhaps the Texas abortion ban, voting rights, border crisis, January 6th, they're all expected to come up. Democrats expected to focus specifically on January 6th. Your thoughts of what you might hear from your colleagues on the other side of the aisle?
Yeah, I think all of those issues are likely to come up, and it's going to be interesting because he's obviously a Democratic attorney general under the Biden administration. But as you alluded to, I think a lot of Democrats don't think he's gone far enough with progressive radical socialism and enforcing these different mandates using the power of the FBI. There's probably are going to be questions about January 6th and their authority and their use to why haven't these people been prosecuted and thrown in jail, all of them. I think that's what you're going to see from the Democrats. And then you're going to see the opposite from the Republicans as to you're treating one political class of people one way and another class of people another way. You have at the border right now hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants who are illegally crossing the border and violating federal law, and this administration is ignoring felonious activity that's happening on our border while focusing on things of people trespassing in the Capitol. So the focus is completely political in this administration and the Attorney General's office.
Just going back again to the FBI's probe into these threats at school board meetings, talk to me about the really intense questioning that we might see from DOJ officials when it comes to those who've committed violent acts across this country. Specifically, a year ago, in the summer of 2020, we saw rioting and criminal activity, but crime rates have continued into 2021 as well. Is there any interest from the DOJ to get to the bottom of that?
Well, that would be a great question that I would like to ask as it relates to all of these riots we saw over the past summer. Where are these individuals? Are they in solitary confinement like some of the people from the January 6th protests? Have they had the FBI raid their home with SWAT teams and drag them to court and charge them with all of these crimes? Because you certainly haven't heard that that's happened to any of these protesters, because that was, in their terms from the left, peaceful protesting. But January 6th was a domestic terrorism. And they use that term, not lightly, they use that term so they can surveil on these people using the Patriot Act. So you're seeing a very dichotomy treatment between the conservatives of our country and the liberals and socialists of our country who are breaking the law. And it should be equal justice under the law, not political justice out of this AG's office.
And that hearing expected to start at 10 a.m. We'll be watching. Congressman Greg Steube will be questioning the Attorney General. We thank you for taking the time this morning and joining us with the preview. Thanks so much, Congressman.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You got it.
All right, still ahead.